Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jeff Porter. I'm actually the head of customer success here at Promoter. And today we're actually going to be going over kind of how to harness the power of Promoter. It's a whole lot of information, so we're going to go ahead and jump right in. Real quick, if you're not familiar with Promoter, if you're just kind of checking us out or new to the platform, what is Promoter.io? We're really the most effective way to engage and learn from your customers. We use Net Promoter and the Net Promoter score to help you get a whole lot of useful information from your customer base, and you can take that to really kind of build customer loyalty, increase the word of mouth referrals. Of course, for me, it's very much a focus on increasing customer retention, and then taking all of that information and kind of the next step with it is saying, where are we successful and how do we use that to find new growth opportunities? And we'll be talking about quite a bit of that as we go through today. A little bit of information about me. I am the head of customer success here. Prior to being with Promoter, I actually worked for a company called People Admin, where I managed their NPS program as a customer engagement manager. I've been dealing with NPS, customer analytics, and kind of customer feedback loops for well over 5 years now. And here's our agenda for the day. So what we're going to do is actually dive into the app, go through how we create a campaign from start to finish, all the different features and functionality that exists within each campaign, then how you handle the feedback when it starts coming in. So you've sent the surveys out, data is flowing back into you. What do you do with that information? What does the system allow for you to do? And then more importantly, maybe how we convert that data and those numbers and that feedback into success. How do we increase loyalty, increase word of mouth referrals, all of that information? How do we take that next step? And then at the very end, we will recap all the information and have kind of a Q&A. And actually, what we're going to do now is jump out of PowerPoint. I'm sure we love seeing all those screens, but we're actually going to spend most of today in the app. So I'm going to jump over there now. Let's see. Here we go. So this is the screen you get when you first log into Promoter. If you are brand new to Promoter, or if you haven't even signed up for a trial just yet, when you first log in, you're actually, instead of having a campaign listed right here, you'll have a big plus sign and it will say create new campaign. After you have created one campaign, assuming you're on a plan that allows you to create multiple campaigns, you'll always have the option in the upper right-hand corner here to create a new campaign. And so that's what we're going to do. Let's walk through that process of creating that new campaign. First step, obviously, we're going to need to name our campaign, and we will create Goofy Sky School today. And then after that, it's going to ask us to select a contact source. Now, for today, what we're going to do is actually walk through creating a campaign using a CSV. However, as we go along, I'm going to mention the differences that you would see if you were using one of our integrations. Real quick, we do offer 3 separate integration types. We've got API. So if you've got a dev resource available and you'd like to connect Promoter to another tool that you use or your database, you can do that via the API. If you need documentation, you can always click on our facts and best practices down here to get documentation on any of these integrations. But it'll go over the correct calls to make for the API. Also, in the case of Zapier, it'll go over kind of how to create the zaps from beginning to end. If you're not familiar with Zapier, it's kind of a wonderful tool that takes the API and actually makes it almost like a visual representation of it, where I can select which information I want to pass back and forth. It's really nice if you don't have that dev resource to set up the API. This is something that can be done without that. And then lastly, if you are using Segment, we do offer a Segment integration. It is bi-directional, so we can both receive information and push NPS data back out to any other source that you need. So we've got our CSV selected right now. We're actually going to leave that in place since that's what we use for the sample today. And it takes you to the next screen. So now you've told us how you're going to get information into the system. This is actually creating the list. So one difference you'll see here is, in this instance, when I click create new list, or if I select a list, I'll have the option, to add context to the list. You won't get this option with an integration. You're just telling the integration where to store the contacts when they're pushed over. So if you're using Segment or API, you're just telling it what list you want the data to be stored in. But since we are using a CSV, we'll go ahead and create a new list. Goofy's list. And so, when we selected it, we saw it was CSV. So what it means, you're not able to accept Excel files. It does have to be CSV. You can always take your Excel file and save it as a CSV. So that should allow you to import that data into Promoter. I've got a sample file here that I'm going to use as we get this set up. Something to keep in mind is that we only require an email address to get surveys out. So if the only information, let me pull up my file here. So if the only information we had was this email list and these other columns didn't exist, we'd still be able to do it. Now, we do give you the ability to drag and drop the first and last name into the list or into the importer. So this is just saying that these are the first and the last name. It doesn't mean that the rest of the information isn't uploaded. We're just saying that we will use the first and last name as a display option when you are receiving feedback. So if Homer provides a piece of feedback, as we'll see here in just a little while, it will show me not just his email address, but I'll now have Homer Simpson show up as his first and his last name. The information is never used in data that's sent out to your customers. So if there's a misspelling, if there's a department that's accidentally put in as a first name, something like that, none of that is accidentally sent out to your customers. The other three fields in this instance, but any additional fields that you would have on your CSV file, so the start date, the plan, the users, these are all uploaded as attributes. Attributes in the Promoter system simply mean that these are values that you can filter your survey results by. So if I get NPS scores back from all of these contacts and I want to see just how the NPS score is looking for my customers on the growth plan, since I've uploaded this data as an attribute, I'll then be able to filter on it on the feedback page. And so we'll see that here in a little bit. But something to keep in mind as you're uploading those contact lists or even pushing it over from one of the integrations, anything you push over that isn't email, first name, or last name will be something you can filter by on your dashboard. So once we've got the email address and if we've got them the first and last name selected here, we can click Map. We'll get a little pop-up here at the top just telling us that it'll send an email to us once it's uploaded, but we're good to go for now. So we can move on to the next step of setting up this campaign. Next, we're going to set up the email template. So this is exactly what your customers will see when you send the surveys out. And it's thinking about it. There we go. So we'll go ahead and click on Create a New Template, but if you already had one created, you could come in and select it from there. Goofy template. So as soon as we name it, it pops up kind of a blank template. Now, everything that is underlined and in blue text on here is something that you can edit. And actually, we encourage you to edit pretty much everything that's underlined in blue. The first will be the reply to email address. So not all of your customers will see this. It depends on how their email client is set up. But you want to keep in mind that if they do reply to the email address and you don't actually put a legitimate email address in here, it'll bounce back telling them it's not an actual email address. So we certainly recommend putting something in here, a real email address in here. That being said, we'd also recommend putting in a kind of a group box or a email address that is not your personal work email, just because you will also get all the out of office replies to this email address. And if there are employees of your customers who are no longer working there, you'll get those notifications. All that will go to this email address. For this example, I'm just going to go ahead and put my email address in there, but something to keep in mind when you're setting this up. Next, we've got the from line. So for a lot of people, especially people who are checking emails on their tablets, on their phones, all they're going to see when they check it is this from line and this subject. So we want to go ahead and make sure that we've got an accurate from line. And then, we want to make sure we've got a good subject line. And we actually make some recommendations over here on the right-hand side of the screen when you click on the subject line. One of the big things that you'll notice about our recommendations is they all incorporate the company name. The reason being, again, if people are checking this on their tablet, on their phone, on a smart device, all they're going to see is the from in the subject line. In most cases, they won't have a sample viewing of the email itself. They won't see the preview off to the side. They'll just see the from in the subject line. And if it's from Goofy, 2 quick questions, and they don't know who Goofy is, there's a good chance this is going in the trash. So what we do recommend is kind of putting in the company name. Again, whether it's on the subject line or the from line isn't the real kind of catch there, just so long as it's included in one of the 2 lines. So 2 quick questions from Goofy's Sky School. And then another kind of good idea, recommendation is you can come in here and select Goofy and maybe give him a title. So, depending on who it is, sometimes we've got customers who will use a from line and they use the CEO, and everyone knows their CEO and they're well known within the customer base, and there's no need to call out who they are. In other instances, it may be worthwhile to say, Goofy, CEO, or, Jeff Porter, head of success at Promoter, something like that, just to give it a little bit of, information on exactly who's sending this message to them. Next, we'll go ahead and choose a logo. As you can see, we can use PNG, JPEG, or GIF here. And I've got my JPEG file here. So we've got Goofy Sky School logo. Again, just makes it look a lot nicer. When they open up the email, it has the logo. They immediately are comfortable. Okay, this is who I thought it was. So you get a higher response rate having the image in there. Next, we've got the kind of introductory information within the email itself. Actually, this is the one thing that you may not want to change. It's completely up to you. If there's a certain way that you communicate with your customers, a certain language that you use, it's a great opportunity to incorporate that here. But one of the things you want to make sure you don't do with this messaging is frame the question. So you don't want the question to call to mind specific events that have occurred. You don't want to call to mind specific components of your tool or your product or your services, whatever the case may be. You don't want to focus on one particular thing because with NPS, what we're really trying to do is get a holistic view of what your customers think about you. And it's really about the entire brand and the entire company, and not just, hey, how was Goofy as a flight instructor? No, we want to know how signing up for class, from taking the classes, from the instructor to the whole kit and caboodle. We want to make sure that we incorporate all of that in the question. And if we're focusing on one thing, while there may be value in that information, it's really not a representation of NPS. You do also have the ability to come in here and delete this out. So if I didn't want any message in there, when they receive the email, it would just be blank and go straight to the, how likely are you to recommend question. I'm going to go ahead and leave the messaging in there, and then we're going to quickly add the brand name here. So now they'll receive it, how likely are you to recommend a Goofy Sky School to a friend or a colleague. The other component that we have around the template is the thank you page. The reason they're together is because the thank you page is directly tied to the template, so that when they receive the thank you after they've completed the survey, here we go, it will pull the logo from the email template. So you have to have an email template created for the thank you page to populate. So when they get the thank you page, this is the default thank you page they would see. It's got your logo. It says thank you for your feedback, and then that would be the end of it. Now, we do give you the option of adding an additional thank you message here. So thank you for your feedback. We really appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you in the skies. It's been awesome. You can also include an optional link. So if I want to come in here and be like, oh, let's link to Goofy Sky School, we'll go at goofyflies.com. And I can do that. And then when they receive the message, just click on the preview here, they'll have Goofy Sky School right down here that they can click on. The other option we've got with the thank you pages is you can actually specify which thank you or what you want the thank you page to say based on what score they've provided. So if they're your promoters, if they're customers that are giving you 9s and 10s on the NPS survey, maybe your message here is along the lines of, thank you so much. We're glad you had such a wonderful experience and you didn't end up in the hospital. And then maybe the link here is, rather than just the home page, it's, hey, join us on our Facebook page, and you create the link for your Facebook page. Whereas maybe with your passives and your detractors, you don't want them going to your social media and potentially commenting there. So it could be more along the lines of, hey, sorry things weren't, you didn't have a better experience, or thank you for this feedback. We're always looking to improve. If there's anything we could do to help you out now, please reach out to us, and then create a link here to your support page or something like that, or a way for them to engage with you, so that if there is an issue, if there's something you need to be involved in, they're not, again, waiting for another response. You give them the opportunity to be a little more proactive about reaching out to you about it. Once you have set up your thank you pages and your email template is ready to go, you can click back and see it's already associated with the campaign there. We can click back to our campaigns here. We'll now see that we've got a second campaign listed here. It's not active yet. It's in a setup state. So we're going to go ahead and select complete setup, and it'll take us right back to where we left off. And now that we've got a template set up, we can see it over here. Something you could have done on that template page, or you can do here, is actually send yourself a test email. And so we're going to do that real quick and take a look at what the template looks like when your customers are receiving it. Actually, I've got one up right here. So 2 quick questions from Goofy Sky School. It came from Goofy, the CEO. And so I can see, okay, I've got my logo here. Please take 1 minute, leave us your candid feedback. And then how likely are you to recommend Goofy Sky School to a friend or a colleague? Well, you know what? I had a wonderful time at Goofy Sky School. I'm going to select the 9. Takes me to the next page. Okay, I can change my score here, or what is the most important reason for my score? It was great. Submit survey. And so then we go to the thank you page. Thank you for your feedback. We're thrilled you had such a great time. Hopefully the crashes were all in good fun. Hope to see you in the sky soon. And then again, that link I talked about to their Goofy's Facebook page. And we can do the same thing with the test email. We can come in and actually say, okay, well, you know what? No, what happens if they had a bad experience? I can select a 3. There were way too many crashes. I'm so upset. And I get a different link here. So, sorry you didn't have a better experience. Hopefully it wasn't all the broken bones. Here's a link to the school hospital. So you can customize it enough that you're able to thank your promoters and give them the opportunity to continue to engage with you. But your detractors, your passives, maybe you need to give them a way to reach out to you and still engage, but in a less public space. And so we're going to jump back to our setup here. And so now that we've got our contacts in the system, we've got our template set up, it's really about the settings that we want for these surveys to go out. So we get the option of specifying a send time. We can send them instantly. In this case, it would be as soon as we get to the end of this and hit send surveys, they're going out. Or we can specify a time. So if I want to send my surveys out at 11 a.m. Central, I can specify that in here. We actually, as a default, do choose 11 a.m. Central, the idea being that we get the highest response rates mid to late morning. So this is when people have come into work, they're in front of their computers. More often than not, we see that people are using afternoon hours for meetings, engagements, phone calls. So having that mid to late morning time frame for the email to go out, there's a good chance your customers are actually going to be in front of their computer during that time. Send days, we have the option of business days or calendar days. This is dependent upon kind of your customers. If you know that they're only Monday through Friday, maybe you want to leave it as business days. If you know they're checking all the time, calendar days is a good option. And then we get to the distribution. So if we leave it at batch, all of my surveys are going out either instantly or if it's after 11 a.m. tomorrow at 11. If it's before 11 a.m., they're going out today at 11. But all of the ones on my contact list are going out at that time. What I can do is select drip, and then I get the option of selecting 30, 90, or 180 days. So I can say I want to send these surveys over the next 30 days. It will take my contact list, break it up evenly over 30 days, and then same number of emails going out, in this case on each business day for the next 30 days, so that I'm not getting all of my feedback all at once, especially if you've got a large list of customers. This is a great opportunity to break it up so that you're not getting all the feedback at once. You can respond in a timely manner. You're not getting inundated with so much information that it's not something you can process easily. If it's a very small group, recommend just leaving it at batch. My sample size, I think, is 12 email addresses, so we'll leave it at batch and they can all go out at once. One quick note, if you're using an integration here, you won't get the distribution option, but what you'll have here is actually what we call a delivery delay. So what that means is, if you're using the API and you trigger a contact to be added today, you can add a delivery delay of 14 days. So if your trigger for your contact to be added to the promoter system is a new sign up, for instance, you could add a delivery delay of 14 days so that they've got 2 weeks of using the system or using your service before they receive the survey. Next, we've got our recurring setup. So recurring is really more of a option for subscription-based services, although we do have some transactional customers who will use it just to get feedback, right away. Okay, you purchased something, were you happy with your experience? And then they'll add a recurring survey to say, I just want to survey them one time after 90 days, after 3 months, survey them again to let me know, are they still happy with the purchase? Whereas with a subscription-based business, okay, so we sent the survey out today and I want to survey all of my customers once a quarter and I'm going to do it forever, so that this way it automates the process of continually surveying them. So surveys going out once a quarter, it's going to go out every quarter for them. You don't have to worry about getting their email address in there every time or using a contact list to send it to them again every quarter. Kind of just automates that process for you. We do, of course, have the option of having it be a one-time survey. So if you just want it to go out today, they purchase something, there's no continuous engagement that would require them to provide some additional feedback down the line, I can just leave this as one time. Advanced, this is the last of the settings here. We've got our automated reminders. So this is a reminder email that goes out. It's actually exactly the same as the survey email. The only difference is that in brackets in the subject line, it says reminder. We have the option of disabling it or setting it for 3, 5, or 7 days. We only offer one reminder for a very specific reason. We've found that offering one reminder increases your response rate without having an impact on the actual scores. Once you go past a single reminder, you've now sent them the survey 3 times, and response rates don't go up very much. However, scores do drop off. So now they're responding less to your service, your product, your offering, and much more to the fact that you have sent them 3 emails. They didn't respond the first or the second time. Now they're just annoyed, so your score is going to drop. Second feature on this page is what we call feedback forwarding. We have kind of two different groups that use this. One is if you've got a CRM or a ticketing system that has a specific email address. I think we use Groove HQ as an example in here, and your customers email that email address to open up a support ticket. Same concept. You put that in here, and then every time a piece of feedback is received, every time someone completes a survey, it'll send that information to your ticketing system, open up a ticket there so that your support team or whoever's managing your ticketing system can engage with your customers based on the feedback they've provided. We do have a few customers who will actually put a personal email address in here or a group email address in here. just so that there is a notification going out every time someone completes a survey, and then you can log into the Promoter system and handle that how you see. And we'll see that here in just a bit. When we click next, we'll see kind of a recap of everything that we've gone over. So on the right-hand side, it tells us, okay, 12 surveys are going to be sent out today. I'm using Goofy's list. My email template is Goofy's template. They're going to go out at 11 a.m. Central. So even though it says today, if it's after 11 a.m., it actually won't go out until tomorrow. If it's before 11 a.m., then it would go out at 11 a.m. today. Distribution, I'm sending them all at once, but if you had broken it up over 30, 60, or 90 days, it would tell you here. It would also show you up here, if we'd broken this up over 30 days, it would say, roughly, something like 2 surveys will be sent, or 1 survey will be sent every other day, or 1 survey will be sent every 3 days, roughly. To get the 12 surveys out in 30 days. So it'll tell you exactly how many surveys are going out on a daily basis if you've got a distribution set up. It'll also show us here if we'd had a recurring settings turned on. So if it were going out quarterly or 30 days after the initial survey, it would show that information here. It does show that I've got 3-day reminder. No email address was provided for feedback forwarding. And then we get this setting. So this is actually not included in any of the options as we're getting the campaign set up. And the specific reason is that this is this setting is more than just a campaign setting. It's actually an organization setting. And so we can click on the little link here to open it up. Right now my throttle is disabled, but if I come in here, I can set it 30, 60, 90, or 180 days. The survey throttle is just saying that no email address will be surveyed more than once during that time frame. So if I were to select 30 days, save the change, you'll notice immediately that I have 0 contacts eligible for survey. My Simpsons list has been used in the last 30 days, which means everyone on that list has already been surveyed in the last 30 days. So it's immediately saying you don't have anyone eligible to survey, so no surveys are going out. Disable that, save the change, and it'll go back to 12 surveys are going out. So something to keep in mind, it's a great way to make sure you're not over-surveying your customers, kind of a safeguard to say, oh, if you accidentally uploaded an email address you already had, that it doesn't, they don't get an additional survey that they shouldn't be receiving, but it's not specific to one campaign. Again, that's your whole organization. So if I've got multiple campaigns set up, it will cover all of them. So I'm going to go ahead and click Send Surveys. And that's about it. So now my surveys have gone out. It'll show me here in just a second that I've got 12 surveys for this campaign. There shouldn't be any scheduled. And then, of course, it gives me a recap of all those settings again here. A quick note real quick, you'll see here you've got the ready status. So we had set up. Now we've got ready. It'll stay in the ready status until surveys have gone out and we start getting feedback in again, so that I'll then have a report to go see. It'll show up as active at that point, and I'll have a report to go view. If ever you were needing to send additional surveys on a CSV campaign, so if we've got an integration campaign, your API, Zapier segment, the sending of surveys is automated through that process. However, if we're using a CSV, you uploaded a list, and that's the list that we're sending surveys out to. So if you need to go in and send more surveys, you can always click on the little arrow here, go to Settings. And then at the top, we've got Campaign Actions, and I can click on that. I can edit my campaign settings here, or I can actually send more surveys. And clicking on that just takes me right back into the survey setup process. So technically, I could change how this campaign's set up. If I used a CSV and I wanted to change it to an API campaign now, I could do that. Or if I'm just uploading new contacts, leave it on CSV and it'll walk me through all the steps we just went through. One last thing about setting up your campaigns to get the surveys out. We talked about the survey throttle. Another option that you want to take a look at, and you can click on this drop down to access, is actually your deliverability settings. So I'm going to click on that. Your deliverability settings are settings within your campaign that allow for emails to go out as though they are coming from your domain. So, a lot of times, the promoter domain is a respected domain. We don't end up in a whole lot of spam boxes just because we're promoter. However, a lot of your customers may receive this as showing it, coming from, Goofy at goofyflies.com via mail.promoter.io. Whereas if you go in and you add the CNAME records and validate your domain, it will just show up as though it's coming just from your domain. So it's, if a customer receives an email from you and it shows up in their inbox, if you validate your domain, it should be exactly the same for the survey going out. It looks exactly like it's coming from your email address. So it just kind of removes any potential risk of, kind of appearing to be spoofed, anything like that. We don't end up in a whole lot of spam filters anyways, but this is just another step we can take to try and avoid that. So now we've gotten our surveys out, we've gotten our customer list uploaded, template built, thank you pages are ready to go, surveys have gone out, and now we're getting inundated with data. Responses are coming in, all that information. Let's jump into our second campaign down here to take a look exactly what it looks like and kind of the information you'll start to see and what you can do with it. So we're going to go ahead and click on our view report here. When we do that, it takes us straight to our dashboard page. Sorry about that. And then you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, we'll have the different pages that we can see within our campaign itself. You can also, quick note, access any templates you've created over here, all of your contact lists, and at any point in time, you can see what attributes you've got uploaded to your contact lists. But right now we're on our dashboard page. So this is the default view you'll have when accessing a campaign. The time frame over here in the right-hand side will, by default, show the last 30 days from the last day a piece of feedback was received. So it's showing me October 23rd to November 22nd. What I want to do is go ahead and change this. Let's say I want to look at all time. We do have the option, as you can see there, to look at the last 30 days, the last 60 days, 90, or you can click custom and come in here and actually just, select the date range. So if I wanted to do January 2017 to June 2017, I could do that. But for right now, we're going to go ahead and leave it at all time. And then I get this nice graph. It's showing me how things are going. Obviously, we would like to see this trending in a more positive way, especially with our more recent feedback. But it does give you a quick visualization of exactly how things are going. And again, we're looking, in this instance, June to November. So, roughly 4 months here of information, 4 to 5 months worth of information here. So it's a great opportunity to come in and say, okay, over that time period, I know what we've done in the business. How are we impacting our customers? Underneath the graphical representation, we get a percentage of each one of our respondents. We have 58% promoters, 20% passive, and 22% are detractors. And just a reminder, we're talking about a scale of 0 to 10. So our promoters are our 9s and 10s, our passives are our 7s and 8s, and our detractors are those customers who have given us the 0 through 6 score. Then we get our overall NPS. NPS is the percentage of promoters subtract the percentage of detractors. If ever you forget that, you're not sure, you can hover over the little question mark here and the calculation will show up there. Underneath that, we get some information about the campaign itself. So in this instance, we have surveyed 1,251 people. Of those recipients, 1,249 of them have been delivered. We did have 2 emails bounce or drop. As of yet, no one has unsubscribed. Next, we've got a revenue calculator. So you can actually, again, hover over these little links to see exactly where we came up with this information. But what you do is come in, click edit, or if this is a new campaign for you, it'll be blank, and just type in what revenue per customer you're using to calculate this. So if on average I have customers pay us $500 for our service. I can click save, and then we can see immediately what the short-term risk is, long-term risk is, and potential new revenue is. A lot of times we get questioned about, how frequent is this revenue? So if we're a subscription-based model, do we put our monthly revenue? Do we put our lifetime value? Do we put our annual revenue in here? And that is completely up to you. The only thing to remember is that whichever value you use in this field is what's reflected here. So if this is my annual run revenue per customer, then I know I'm looking at $69,750 in short-term annual revenue risk. Whereas if it's monthly, then this is potential monthly revenue risk. Next, we've got a kind of a quick representation of the score analysis. So, if we're looking at an NPS score, the options are -100 to 100. Anything below a 0 is considered a bad NPS score. But that just really means that you've got more people who are giving you detractor scores, more people that are giving you a 0 through 6 than are giving you a 9 or 10. So that's really the takeaway. If you're below 0, you've got more people upset than you do who are really happy with your service. Next, we've got kind of our 0 to 50 mark. That's considered a good NPS score. Again, more people are now promoters than detractors, so we're moving in the right direction. They're enough people who are happy about it that hopefully we've got data there that we can capitalize on. Next, we've got kind of from 50 to 70 is considered an excellent NPS. These tend to be businesses that are very customer-centric and focused on NPS in general to drive the business. And then certainly in the 70 to 100 range, these are world-class businesses. So these are companies like Southwest Airlines, USAA, companies that are extremely focused on not just the customer, but NPS as a whole. So, taking the data that they're receiving here, analyzing it, and then taking it back to their business and taking action on it. That's really how you drive up that NPS score. And more importantly, that's really how you drive customer engagement, customer loyalty, referrals. All of that starts with a willingness to listen to your customers and take action on the feedback that they're providing you. So follow-up completion. We'll touch on this in just a second, but this is actually how much, what percentage of your customers have you responded to within the promoter system. So we'll talk about that in a second. Response rate. So this is, how many, of the 1,251 surveys that have gone out, how many responses have we received? In this instance, 1,233. That being said, please keep in mind, this is demo data, sample data. If you're able to get 98%, first of all, that's fantastic. Congratulations. Secondly, I'm going to be reaching out to schedule a call with you because I want to know how to do that. So, typically we see a response rate between 25 and 35%. We do have some customers who are up over the 40% rate. And then we have some customers, especially if they're new to sending these surveys out, who may start in the 10 to 15% range. But we've got a few tips and tricks to kind of drive that up, and happy to talk to anybody about that. But one of the biggest things is really just following up with your customers and letting them know why you're doing this. It really does drive that response rate up. Next, we've got a category breakdown. So this is the same as our bar graph up here, except it actually gives the hard number. So I have 704 promoters, 250 passives, and 279 detractors. We also provide the average score. So on average, my customers are giving me a 7.7 on the NPS score, and then a breakdown of how many of each numerical score I've received. Ideally here, we're seeing much more greens than we are anything else on the scale. And then at the very bottom, we've got our most recent scores on the left-hand side. So this is the last 10 most recent scores. And then we've got our top 10 trends over here. And we'll actually talk about the trends here a little bit more in just a few minutes. But that is the dashboard. One other thing that we talked about earlier, the attributes that you upload into the promoter system. So, we talked about we will accept an email, first name, last name, but everything else is considered an attribute. So if I wanted to filter by an attribute, click on this. I can actually come in here and, you know, we had, I think plan was what we had on our sample data. So I can click on plan, click next, and it'll give me all the different plan options that have been uploaded into the system. There we go. And so, you know, a few different ones. Not all of these were on our sample data, but I know we had growth, and I'm really interested in seeing how my growth customers are doing. So I'm going to add that filter, and immediately my dashboard adjusts for the information that I'm getting. So I have sent 6 people with the attribute growth a survey. Only 2 of them have responded. Obviously, I've got a lot of risk here. I've only responded to 1 of them in the system, and then I can see, you know, graphically, it's not a very impressive graph because only 2 of them have responded, and they've both been negative. But I can see the representation there per that specific filter. You can also come in here and add additional filters. So if I wanted, you know, let's see here, if I wanted to do start date, so I want to see my growth customers who I've had since July. I can add that as a filter. Of course, every filter I add, I run the risk of, okay, well, I've gotten so granular that I actually don't have any feedback regarding that one. But you can add additional features if you need to. Clear that out. And again, we go right back to all of our information. So let's jump over here on the left-hand side and take a look at the feedback. So if the dashboard is kind of a high-level view of our overall score and how we're trending, the feedback is a little bit more of a micro view. So now I'm seeing exactly all of the feedback that has come through, and I can click on it and see, okay, you know, I've got, you know, this is actually where the name would come in. So if I click on Bart Simpson, I can see that it's from Bart Simpson. He gave me a 9. This is when he completed the survey. I have historical information on the right-hand side, so I know when he was last surveyed, how many times he's been surveyed, what his response rate is. I get his, in this instance, last 3 scores, and I can actually see here that they're on different campaigns. So he did respond on October 27th to this campaign, but also I ran 2 other campaigns and he responded to those 2 as well. And then I also get his attributes over here on the right-hand side. I've got his company name, you know, misspelling here, but a customer since, and we'll actually talk about this data here in just a few minutes as we get into tag management and then attribute management. But we can see that there was a misspelling on one of our attributes, but I've got that he was a customer since 2013. Clearly, I tried to correct that at some point and uploaded the correct attribute. So I've got 2013. I've got when he joined, number of users, what plan he's on, all of that information is in here as well. So I can see that as I'm looking at an individual piece of feedback. Then I also get his comments here. So, you know, Bart Simpson, it was amazing. The instructors were incredible. I loved the crashing with Goofy. I'm not sure how I didn't end up in the hospital. I would have given you a 10, but the price was way too high. So we've got all of that information here. So what can we do with this now that we've gotten the feedback in? One of the first things that you'll notice, we have the ability to forward this. So I could send this piece of feedback to someone. This does 2 things. One, it allows them to see any comments that have happened, any information that you feel is relevant to them. Also, it'll give them the ability to reply to the customer. So while it's forwarded to whomever you send it to, when they reply, they're actually replying to Bart Simpson. So if you know that, you know, in this instance, maybe I know Goofy's going to want to respond to this one himself, I can forward this to Goofy, add a little comment here so Goofy knows what's going on, hit forward or forward and complete, and, you know, let Goofy handle it. I can also mark this complete. So, you know, any piece of feedback in here that has not already been marked as complete, I can click Mark Complete, and we'll get a little check mark next to it to show that that one has been completed. That would also impact that dashboard follow-up completion percentage. But actually, you know what? I'm not going to mark this one complete here. I actually want to respond to Bart in the system. So I have the ability down here to click on reply and send Bart a message. You know, and it may, in this instance, just be simple, like, you know, hi Bart, happy you enjoyed flying with Goofy. And, you know, maybe it's something anecdotal, you know, it was awesome to see you hit that barn or something. If you've got something to personalize the message even further, that's great. And then I can, you know, hit send reply. It immediately sends this message off to Bart when I click it. And then it also marks that as complete. So I've now followed up with this. The other options we have in here are to leave a note. So if I'm like, you know what, I spoke to Bart, he is actually signing up again with a coupon. So, okay, I acknowledged that the price was too high. Bart wanted to come back. I offered him a coupon. I can now put this as a note in here just so anyone in the future can come in and see you know, what exactly our experience has been up to this point with Bart. And then I can also add tags. So tagging is a great way to take a whole lot of data and make it a little bit more manageable. And we'll take a look here in just a second on the trend analysis page on what we can do with the tags. But first of all, you know, there's a couple of things about the tags we want to keep in mind. First off, not every piece of feedback needs to have a tag. I know if you look over here on the left-hand side, it looks like they do, but if you go farther enough back, you'll see that, you know, we've got feedback in here that doesn't have a tag. It's especially like this first one here. We see this a lot. Customers will come in, there's no comments, so there's no data to actually create a tag based on, but they'll create a tag called, you know, no feedback. We don't want to do this. It's not something that we can track. There's no actual value in tracking that particular item as a feedback or a trend. You know, there's really no reason to incorporate it, but there seems to be a need for people to want to tag every piece of feedback. So something to keep in mind. Don't have to tag all the pieces of feedback. The other thing to keep in mind is that we don't want to create tags that have sentiments associated with them. And maybe I should jump onto Bart's feedback real quick and kind of show you what I'm talking about. So it was amazing. Instructors were incredible. We don't want to create a tag called incredible instructors. You know, so we do that, and it automatically marks that tag as green based on the score here, which in this case is accurate. So the instructors were incredible. Bart loved them. But I'm going to come in here and say price. So I do that, and price is also marked as green. However, Bart was not happy with the price. He'd have given us a better score if the price had been a little bit better for him. So in this instance, what I want to do is click on price and change it to red. And so now I've reflected that the price is not good. He's not happy with the price. It's got a red sentiment. When we kind of look at that concept and then apply it to our incredible instructors, we know that there's never going to be an instance where someone says, the incredible instructors were horrible. Or, you know, I had so much trouble with the incredible instructors. You know, it's just kind of counterintuitive. So what we'd encourage you to do is actually create tags that don't have sentiment. So in this case, I'm going to use just instructors, and then I control whether or not people were happy or upset with them based on the color scheme. And so, you know, it's a very easy kind of concept there, especially if you're actually going through and responding to customers. It's a great way to just, hey, let me take a minute and add the tags. The nice thing is once you've created the tags, I can just click on here and all of my created tags show up. So I can just select them from here. If I need to create a new one, I just come in, start typing, and it'll allow me to create the new tag. You know, so real quick, we can see I don't mind being involved in the crashes, but only offering classes after work hours is not acceptable. I need to have a good reason to not go to work, and your schedule didn't let me call in. So Homer's clearly upset with the class times. He doesn't want to go to work. He wants to stay at home or go to class during work hours. So he's you know, complaining about the class times. Again, in this instance, it defaults to red because his score was negative, which is actually accurate in this instance. So now that you've gone through, you've responded to customers, you've started creating all of these tags, and you're kind of like, okay, well now what can we do with that data? What's the next step here? We'll click on our trend analysis, and the trend analysis is very specific to those tags you're creating, and kind of how do we take action on that information. So first off, we get NPS by trend and average score by trend. A lot of times you'll see that these graphs represent each other. They tend to, shape-wise go in the same direction. We have our instructors, which in this instance, people absolutely love. It's an NPS of 58, whereas maybe our equipment in this case is an NPS of negative 58. So they're not happy about the equipment. So it's a quick kind of visual representation of exactly what our NPS scores look like by trend. Now, more often than not, a customer will leave a score that is relative to the comments that they've left. However, as we saw in the little sample using price, Bart was very happy with the service overall. He gave us a 9, but he was upset about the price. So just looking at our NPS by trend or our average score by trend isn't necessarily a good reflection of sentiment. So when we scroll down here, we can actually see our top negative, neutral, and positive trends. And I really feel like, especially, and I deal with this here at Promoter, this is where we get a lot of actionable information. And again, I'll use us as an example. I go in and I look at the top positive trends, and I see things like support and integrations. And I know, okay, well, these are the things that are making our customers happy. These are the things we want to double down on. So if you're not familiar with our head of support, Caitlin, she is awesome. We get nothing but positive reviews about her. And so I want to say, hey, Caitlin, I just want you to know everyone loves you. This is what customers are saying. We want to make sure you continue to do exactly what you're doing because things are going wonderful in that regard. Go to the engineering team. Hey, integrations are great. Or using our examples here. Go to the instructors. Hey, our people, our customers love the instructors and the classes that you're teaching. And hey, you know what? Homer may have been upset, but in general, class times are really looking good. People really like our class times. On the other side of the spectrum, hey, price is a little high. Where do we compare with our competitors? Or maybe, as a lot of us know, a lot of times price isn't about how much they're spending, but what their perceived value for what they're spending is. So maybe it's a marketing issue. Maybe it's something like, hey, we want people to understand that not only are they getting a great flying education here, they also get to see Goofy crash, and there's value in that. Maybe we need to pitch that a little bit more, whatever the case may be. But it's a great opportunity to take this and say, these are the things that if we could, it'd be great for us to improve. It will have an impact on our customer base. As we were talking earlier about world-class, being those customers that have that NPS from 70 to 100, this is where they focus. It isn't just about getting a score and seeing how it is, or even seeing where it's moving. While that's important, it's what are our customers telling us, and what are we as a business going to do about it? Again, using negative trend here of equipment, it's a great opportunity for Goofy and his team to be like, hey, maybe we go buy some new equipment, or maybe it's just upkeep on our existing equipment, but the perception needs to be that the equipment is safe and that it's functional, and that we're falling out of the sky because we choose to, not because the equipment doesn't work. Another example from here at Promoter, our engineering team is actively working on a more robust reporting system. We've gotten feedback that the reports, much like this, are good. There's a lot of value in it. Our customers are able to, take a lot of next steps with it. But there's been some requests for some more advanced filtering. So, when you select a filter right now, you go in, you select the filter, and it filters by that exact value. What we're doing is actually adding the ability to filter by things like date ranges, so that instead of just seeing who signed up on October of 2017, I will be able to say, I want to see all the customers from January 2017 to, November 2017. That way I get a more robust and representative data as for what I'm looking for. So it's a great opportunity where we're hearing some feedback. It was showing up on our trends, and I was able to go, hey, is this something that our engineering team is aware of? Is it something that they're going to work on? And then our next step here for us is going, okay, yes, let's do this. There's value in it, and we can have an impact on our customers. As you scroll down, you'll actually see trends. I don't have that many tags created in the system right now for this campaign, but all of them would be listed here. And the reason is that these are actually hyperlinks. So, if I'm getting ready to go talk to Goofy about the equipment issues, I can click on equipment here, and it takes me to all of the feedback that has equipment tagged. And so I can immediately go, hey, they're not happy with the equipment. Things aren't working out. One of the things I had meant to do is come in here and actually tag this one with equipment, so it would pop up. But we'll see when we do that. We click back on our trend analysis and click on equipment again. There we go. We see that Marge is in there now. And it was super fun. It was scary. I think that getting planes that were built after the 1930s would be helpful. She saw some loose screws. So, again, we know what the feedback is. I can now take this to Goofy and his team and be like, hey, Goofy, we've got a whole lot of complaints, a whole lot of upset people because they're saying they don't feel safe to begin with. You probably shouldn't flying with Goofy, but they feel it's the equipment as well. And then lastly, at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, we've got what we call our trends radar. So it's just another graphical representation of how things are going, but it's a great way to quickly see where the positive things are and where the negative things are. Obviously, we're getting a whole lot more equipment and class options feedback on the negative side, whereas class times, it's about 50-50. Obviously, we prefer the green to be on the outside there. But it's not so out of line that it's not something that probably could be adjusted pretty quickly. And then, our instructors, okay, people love our instructors. They're much happier with our instructors than anything else we've got going on. So we want to make sure we keep the same instructors and make sure they keep their quality where it's at. And maybe, we need to have a discussion about how we represent the price a little bit better and maybe updating some equipment. But again, a great kind of graphical representation to say, where can I have an impact? Where's the biggest gap for us to improve upon? Next up, we actually have tag management. So we're going through, and we've actually got a great example. I created that tag, incredible instructors. Now, I immediately changed that to instructors because we don't want to have sentiments associated with this. But, it was like, okay, well, that was a little bit concerning or rather not concerning. It's a little bit unnecessary that we've got incredible instructors. So I have the ability to come in here. I could click here and it would show me all the feedback that had the incredible instructor tag. Of course, we know that's 0. Or I can click this drop down. I could rename it. So if I didn't already have instructors made, I could rename it. I could delete it or I could merge it. In this instance, we don't have anything tagged with it. There's no reason to keep that tag. I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. However, we have our support tag down here. A couple of things jump out. One, it's only been used once, so we're not getting a whole lot of feedback that references support. The other is that it's only a negative reference. So when they do use it, they're upset about it. And so it's a great opportunity to say, okay, first of all, do I need this tag? It's not getting used very much. It may actually have negative sentiment tied to it. I mean, support typically doesn't, but it could if you're only seeing feedback in one particular column, be it negative or positive. It's a great opportunity to go, hey, maybe this tag has sentiment associated with it. But perhaps I know that, we actually don't have really a support team. Our instructors are handling all that. So this support feedback should actually be merged with our instructor feedback. So I'm going to click on the merge. I want to merge support into instructors, click merge, and I'll get a notification that's telling me it may take up to 10 minutes for it to actually show up. Because it was one piece of feedback, happened pretty instantaneous. But if you've got more feedback associated with it, it may take a few minutes for our database to catch up. And then lastly is just a settings button. This actually takes you back to what we were looking at earlier, the settings for your campaign, where you can click over here and send more surveys. Now, one other thing I wanted to touch on, since we're talking about the tag management, let's take a look at what attributes look like. So I know tags and attributes aren't the same, but how we handle them is very similar. So these are attributes that we've uploaded into our customer base via the contact list. You'll see that we actually have the data type listed there. That has to do with how we are updating our database right now, and will become more relevant as we start rolling out some new analytics. But just something to keep in mind, in the near future, you'll actually be able to edit the data type. So you'll be able to change it from a string to a date to a Boolean, so that you can filter by it accordingly. But in this instance, we want to jump over here and say, okay, we noticed that we'd actually misspelled customer sense. So I can actually delete this if I didn't think that it was valuable. I can, much like the other ones, rename it or merge it. So I could come in here and go customer sense, but you know what? I just noticed as I'm typing that already exists. So instead, I can click on this, much like the last one, just change that, click customer sense, merge. It should give me the same notification. It may take just a little bit of time to get that completed, but I was able to do it pretty quickly, and we'll notice that customer sense misspelled is now gone. We noticed that customer and customer sense were actually the same value, so I'll just delete that one. I don't need that. I've got customer sense. So much like our tag management, that's how you can come in and manage your attributes. A lot of times we do get customers who have feedback, or rather they'll upload a CSV that's got feedback in it or fields in it that just aren't relevant. So it's a great opportunity to jump in here and just delete all of that information out. So that's really kind of the bulk of the idea between going from creation of the campaign, getting that data in, managing that feedback, tagging your data, and then really taking that next step, going into the trend analysis. And it really does involve, not just customer success or marketing. It's not one department that really drives a successful NPS program. It's a company involvement and company buy-in to say, we are not just going to collect data, we're going to collect data that we then take action on. And so it's a great opportunity to not just collect the data, but really start engaging with it, following through with customers, creating almost a community around the feedback that you're getting. A lot of our most successful customers, we talked about driving that response rate up, and a lot of our successful customers will do a couple of things. One, they'll send out some sort of communication, be it a marketing newsletter or, especially if you're a subscription based, so your customers are going to see this on a continual basis, some sort of engagement with them that says, hey, this survey is coming out. And it doesn't need to be this NPS survey is coming out, just this survey is coming out. We would love to get your engagement on it. We're going to read the responses. We're going to follow through. This helps drive our business. And then actually following up and saying, hey, this is what we heard. And it's not an opportunity to necessarily kind of air your dirty laundry, but much more of an opportunity for you to say, you know what, we are hearing this, reporting. Hey, we're hearing that you like our reporting, but you'd love to have this extra ability. We're taking action on it. This is what we're working on in the future so that you can get more from our system, more from our service, more from our products. And so that kind of continual engagement with your customers, even customers who aren't actively taking the surveys right now, encourages them to start doing it. It shows them that you're taking action on it. So it's a great way to kind of build that community around NPS. So just as a kind of a quick recap, we went over creating the campaign, selecting your contact source, getting those surveys out, then following up. So you want to try and follow up with all of the responses you get. If that's a problem based on the number of responses that you're going to receive, it's great to try to prioritize. Obviously, you want to prioritize detractors first, and in particular, detractors that left comments. That's a great starting point. But again, the more you engage, the more you're able to follow up, the more likely they are to respond to the survey when they receive it again. B, even if it's a detractor who's really upset and maybe on the verge of canceling, it's a great opportunity to kind of give them pause. Okay, so you're upset about something, respond to that, give them a reason to stick around. Hey, you're working on it. Hey, you're engaged in this. Hey, they are paying attention to me. Maybe I should give them a chance to see if we can't either resolve the issue or find a solution to what I am perceiving to be a problem. And then doing all of that really allows you to kind of grow your revenue, reduce churn, And obviously, a lot of the grow revenue, reduce churn is again in that follow up, giving your promoters the opportunity to be just that, promote you. Giving them a platform, be it Facebook, be it a Google review, somewhere where they can actually say, hey, you guys are awesome, in a public forum can really help drive that growth. And then on the other side, again, even the short term, responding to your detractors to get them not to churn immediately and give you the opportunity to resolve anything that may be going on. It's a great way to be perceived as being proactive and, again, reduce that churn. And of course, we've got Yoda here telling us, when our promoters are greater than our detractors, it's inevitable. We're doing something right. We're going to grow. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump in and answer any questions that y'all might have.